What if one of history's deadliest witch hunts had nothing to do with witches? What if the greatest danger facing a peaceful village was not dark magic, but fear itself? Imagine waking up one cold winter morning to discover that your neighbor has accused you of serving the devil. There is no physical evidence. There are no eyewitnesses. Yet by sunset, you are locked inside a prison cell, uncertain whether you will ever see your family again. This sounds like fiction. But in 1692, it became reality. The Salem Witch Trials remain one of the most disturbing examples of mass hysteria and judicial failure in human history. According to the Smithsonian Institution and the National Park Service, more than 200 people were accused of witchcraft during the crisis. 19 innocent people were hanged, one man was crushed to death beneath heavy stones, and several others died inside prison before ever receiving justice. No witch was ever proven to exist, yet an entire community believed Satan walked among them. Historians still debate exactly what caused this extraordinary tragedy. Was it religious extremism, political instability, psychological trauma, family rivalries, personal revenge, or did all these forces combine to create the perfect storm? Before this documentary ends, you'll understand why the Salem Witch Trials are remembered not as a story about witches, but as a warning about what happens when fear becomes stronger than reason. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from. And let me know in the comments which historical mystery fascinates you the most. The Lost Colony of Roanoke, Jack the Ripper, Atlantis, the Knights Templar, or the Salem Witch Trials. I read every comment, and your suggestions often inspire future documentaries. Now, travel back more than 300 years. The year is 1692. The place is Salem Village, a small Puritan settlement in the English colony of Massachusetts. Winter grips the land with relentless force. Snow covers narrow dirt roads. Icy winds whistle through dense forests. Smoke rises from simple wooden homes. Church bells echo across frozen fields. Beyond the edge of the village lies an endless wilderness. To modern eyes, it is beautiful. To the people of Salem, it is frightening. The forest represented uncertainty, danger, temptation, and perhaps even the devil himself. To understand why Salem descended into madness, we must first understand the people who lived there. The villagers were Puritans. They were deeply religious English Protestants who believed God had chosen them to build a holy society in the New World. Every aspect of life revolved around faith. Church attendance was mandatory. Prayer shaped daily routines. The Bible guided both personal behavior and public law. The Puritans believed the world was the scene of an invisible battle between God and Satan. Nothing happened by accident. Every illness had meaning. Every storm carried a message. Every failed harvest reflected God's judgment. Every unexplained tragedy might be evidence of the devil's work. Modern audiences sometimes dismiss these beliefs as ignorance. But the truth was far more complicated. During the 17th century, belief in witchcraft existed throughout Europe. Kings believed it. Judges believed it. University professors believed it. Even respected scientists accepted the possibility that witches served Satan. Across Europe, tens of thousands of people had already been executed for witchcraft before Salem. The villagers inherited these beliefs. They did not invent them. Yet Salem Village possessed problems that extended far beyond religion. The community was deeply divided. Some families depended on farming. Others profited from trade with nearby Salem town. Arguments over land ownership had continued for years. Political disagreements divided neighbors. Economic inequality fueled resentment. Old family feuds remained unresolved. Friendships had become strained. The village looked peaceful from the outside. Inside, tensions simmered beneath the surface. One of the central figures in this divided community was Reverend Samuel Parris. Parris became Salem Village's minister in 1689. Many hoped he would unite the congregation. Instead, he became one of its most controversial leaders. Some admired his strict religious devotion. Others considered him demanding and argumentative. Disputes over his salary, church property, and authority created constant conflict. Attendance at church meetings often ended in bitter arguments. Historians still debate Samuel Parris's responsibility for what followed. Some argue he encouraged fear through fiery sermons about Satan. Others believe he simply lost control of events that spiraled beyond anyone's imagination. Whatever the truth, history forever linked his household to the beginning of the Salem Witch Trials. Inside the Parris home lived his wife, his children, his orphaned niece Abigail Williams, and an enslaved woman named Tituba. Tituba remains one of the most mysterious individuals in the entire story. Most historians believe she came from the Caribbean, possibly Barbados, although her exact origins remain uncertain. She spoke with an unfamiliar accent. She came from a different culture. She knew stories unlike anything Puritan children had ever heard. Whether she actually told supernatural tales to Betty Parris and Abigail Williams remains one of history's unanswered questions. Many later accounts exaggerated her role. Separating historical fact from legend continues challenging researchers today. The winter of 1692 seemed ordinary at first. Then strange things began happening inside the Parris household. 9-year-old Betty Parris suddenly fell ill. She screamed without warning. She crawled beneath furniture. She complained of invisible pains. She covered her ears as though hearing sounds no one else could hear. Soon, 11-year-old Abigail Williams displayed similar behavior. Neighbors watched in confusion. The girls twisted their bodies into painful positions. They shouted uncontrollably. Sometimes they stared silently into empty space. Other times they barked like animals. Nothing made sense. Reverend Parris desperately prayed for their recovery. Friends visited. Neighbors offered advice. Eventually, local physician William Griggs examined the children. He found no obvious physical illness. Unable to explain the symptoms medically, he reached a terrifying conclusion. The girls had been bewitched. Those words spread through Salem like wildfire. Bewitchment. If someone had bewitched the children, then somewhere nearby lived a witch. Fear spread faster than facts. Soon, other young girls began displaying similar symptoms. Ann Putnam Jr., Mercy Lewis, Mary Walcott, Elizabeth Hubbard. Each claimed invisible spirits tormented them. Each insisted unseen forces pinched, scratched, or strangled them. Entire church services descended into panic. Parents feared for their children. Children feared the darkness. Neighbors began watching one another with suspicion. The afflicted girls repeatedly insisted someone was harming them. But who? Village leaders demanded answers. Ministers questioned the girls. Magistrates listened carefully. Eventually, the frightened children began naming names. The first accused shocked no one. Tituba. Sarah Good, a homeless beggar who wandered from house to house. Sarah Osborne, an elderly woman involved in unpopular property disputes who rarely attended church. Each woman stood outside the center of Puritan society. Each was vulnerable. Each lacked powerful defenders. Looking back, historians recognize a troubling pattern. The first accusations rarely targeted the wealthy or influential. They targeted outsiders, people already viewed with suspicion. On March 1, 1692, arrest warrants were issued. The three women stood before magistrates John Hathorne and Jonathan Corwin. The meeting house overflowed with frightened villagers. Every word mattered. Every glance inspired fear. Whenever one of the accused looked toward the afflicted girls, screams erupted. Some girls collapsed. Others claimed invisible hands choked them. Several insisted they could see ghostly spirits standing beside the prisoners. Today, such testimony seems impossible. In Salem, many believed it completely. Sarah Good denied every accusation. Sarah Osborne insisted she was innocent. Tituba initially denied the charges as well. Then everything changed. After hours of questioning, Tituba confessed. Or at least, she appeared to confess. She described terrifying meetings with the devil. She claimed black dogs, strange birds, and mysterious creatures visited her. She said she had signed the devil's book. Most frightening of all, she declared that many other witches lived in Salem. The courtroom fell silent. Until that moment, villagers believed they might be dealing with one or two witches. Now they believed Satan had built an entire network inside their community. Panic exploded. The confession transformed suspicion into certainty. Fear became stronger than evidence. And what happened next would drag an entire colony into one of history's darkest chapters. Tituba's confession changed everything. The moment she claimed that other witches were hiding in Salem, fear exploded across the village. People no longer believed they were investigating a single crime. They believed they were fighting a secret army of Satan. The truth was far more complicated. Overnight, Salem transformed from a quiet farming community into a place where suspicion ruled every conversation. Neighbors who had shared meals together now avoided making eye contact. Children were warned not to wander alone. Church services became filled with fearful prayers. Every unexplained illness, every dead animal, every failed harvest, every strange dream was suddenly viewed as possible evidence of witchcraft. The accusations spread rapidly. The afflicted girls gained extraordinary influence. Whenever they entered a courtroom, every eye turned toward them. Judges listened carefully. Ministers took notes. Parents believed their tears. No one imagined that frightened children could influence the fate of an entire colony. Yet that is exactly what happened. Soon, respected members of Salem began appearing before the court. One of the most shocking accusations involved Rebecca Nurse. Rebecca was more than 70 years old. She was known throughout Salem as a deeply religious woman. She had spent her life raising children, helping neighbors, and faithfully attending church. If anyone represented Puritan values, it was Rebecca Nurse. Her arrest stunned the community. Hundreds of villagers signed petitions defending her good character. Many refused to believe she could possibly be a witch. But inside the courtroom, reason gave way to fear. Whenever Rebecca entered, the afflicted girls screamed. Some collapsed onto the wooden floor. Others cried that invisible spirits were attacking them. Several insisted they could see Rebecca's ghost standing beside them. No one else saw these visions. Yet many judges accepted them as evidence. This became known as spectral evidence, the belief that a witch's spirit could leave the body and attack innocent people. Today, such testimony would never be accepted in any court. But in Salem, invisible visions carried enormous weight. Historians still debate why educated judges accepted such extraordinary claims. Some argue they sincerely believed Satan possessed supernatural powers. Others believe overwhelming fear clouded their judgment. Perhaps both explanations are true. Despite overwhelming support from her neighbors, Rebecca Nurse was found guilty. On July 19, 1692, she was taken to Gallows Hill. She prayed until her final moments. Then she was hanged. Her execution shocked the colony. If someone as respected as Rebecca Nurse could die as a witch, then no one was safe. Soon, another respected citizen challenged the trials. His name was John Proctor. Unlike many others, Proctor openly criticized the court. He believed innocent people were being condemned. He questioned the reliability of the afflicted girls. He warned neighbors that fear had replaced justice. His courage made him dangerous. Before long, the accusations turned toward him. The girls claimed his spirit tormented them. Old rumors resurfaced. Witnesses suddenly remembered suspicious events from years before. John Proctor was arrested. His wife, Elizabeth Proctor, was arrested as well. Because Elizabeth was pregnant, her execution was postponed. John received no such mercy. Throughout his trial, Proctor insisted upon his innocence. He refused to confess to crimes he had never committed. His determination would ultimately cost him his life. Another respected woman soon faced similar accusations. Martha Corey had openly questioned whether the girls were telling the truth. She warned friends that innocent people were being accused. Instead of encouraging caution, her skepticism made her a suspect. If someone defended accused witches, perhaps they secretly served the devil too. That dangerous logic spread quickly. Martha Corey was arrested. Her husband, Giles Corey, protested loudly. He believed the court had lost its senses. Soon, he also found himself accused. By the summer of 1692, the number of prisoners had grown so large that Massachusetts Governor William Phips created a special court to hear the cases. It became known as the Court of Oyer and Terminer. Its purpose was simple: restore order. Instead, it accelerated the hysteria. The court, led by Lieutenant Governor William Stoughton, continued accepting dreams, visions, rumors, and spectral evidence. Convictions became increasingly common. On June 10, 1692, Bridget Bishop became the first person executed during the Salem Witch Trials. Unlike Rebecca Nurse, Bridget already possessed a controversial reputation. She wore bright clothing. She had been married several times. She was outspoken and independent. To many Puritans, those qualities already seemed suspicious, yet none of them proved witchcraft. Still, she was found guilty. As she climbed the gallows, the people of Salem believed justice had been served. Instead, they had crossed a line from which there would be no easy return. Her execution opened the floodgates. The hangings continued. The prisons filled. The fear deepened. Families stopped trusting one another. Children accused parents. Servants accused masters. Neighbors accused lifelong friends. No social status guaranteed protection anymore. Then came one of the most astonishing cases of all. Former Minister George Burroughs was arrested and accused of leading a secret coven of witches. Witnesses claimed he possessed supernatural strength. Others insisted invisible spirits obeyed his commands. The accusations grew more unbelievable with every hearing, yet the court accepted them. When Burroughs stood beneath the gallows, he did something many believed impossible. He flawlessly recited the Lord's Prayer. According to popular belief, a true witch could never speak the sacred prayer correctly. The crowd fell silent. For a brief moment, doubt spread through those gathered. Some wondered if an innocent man was about to die. Then the influential minister Cotton Mather addressed the crowd. He urged them to trust the court. Moments later, George Burroughs was executed. The trials continued, but beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to appear. Some ministers started questioning the evidence. Some judges privately expressed concern. Even ordinary villagers began wondering whether fear had gone too far. And before long, one man's extraordinary act of courage would force the entire colony to confront the terrifying possibility that they had been executing innocent people all along. The breaking point came with one man who refused to surrender. His name was Giles Corey. An elderly farmer in his 80s, Giles had watched his wife, Martha Corey, arrested and accused of witchcraft, despite her reputation as a faithful church member. He had spoken openly against the trials, criticizing the court and questioning the accusations. Soon, the court turned its attention to him. When Giles Corey was brought before the judges, they demanded that he enter a plea, guilty or not guilty. Instead, he remained silent. Under English law, a trial could not proceed unless the accused entered a plea. The judges responded with one of the cruelest punishments ever used in colonial America. Giles was laid flat on the ground. A wooden board was placed across his chest. Heavy stones were stacked on top of it. Again and again, the judges demanded that he speak. Again and again, he refused. Witnesses later recalled that his only reply was two unforgettable words: more weight. For nearly 2 days, more stones were added. His ribs broke. His breathing became weaker. Yet he never entered a plea. On September 19, 1692, Giles Corey died beneath the crushing weight. Historians believe he remained silent to protect his family's property from being confiscated by the government. His final act became one of remarkable courage and sacrifice. But what happened next shocked everyone. Only 3 days later, on September 22, 1692, 8 more innocent people were hanged. It was the largest single execution of the Salem Witch Trials. The gallows had become a symbol of fear. Families watched in silence. Children lost parents. Husbands lost wives. Neighbors buried neighbors. The nightmare seemed endless. Yet quietly, public opinion was beginning to change. The accusations had spread far beyond the poor and the vulnerable. Respected citizens, successful merchants, military officers, even relatives of powerful government officials were now being accused. If the hysteria continued, no one would remain safe. At the same time, several influential ministers began questioning the courts. Among them was Increase Mather, one of the most respected religious leaders in New England. Although he believed witchcraft could exist, he warned that invisible visions and spectral evidence should never be enough to sentence a person to death. He famously argued that it was better for 10 guilty people to escape than for one innocent person to be executed. Those words carried enormous influence. Governor William Phips, who had returned from military campaigns, realized that the trials had become dangerously out of control. In October 1692, he dissolved the court of Oyer and Terminer. The court responsible for the executions no longer existed. A new court was created. This time, spectral evidence was largely rejected. Without dreams, visions, and invisible attacks serving as proof, most of the remaining cases quickly collapsed. Many prisoners were declared not guilty. Others were released. By May 1693, Governor Phips ordered the remaining prisoners freed. The Salem Witch Trials had finally ended. But for the survivors, the suffering did not. Many returned home to ruined farms. Others found their property confiscated, families had been destroyed, children had grown up without parents. Some prisoners were forced to pay the costs of their own imprisonment before they could leave jail. Even after freedom, suspicion followed them. In the years that followed, feelings of guilt slowly spread throughout Massachusetts. In 1697, the colony declared a public day of fasting and repentance. Several jurors admitted they had made terrible mistakes. One of the judges, Samuel Sewall, publicly confessed his role in the tragedy and asked both God and the people for forgiveness. It was an extraordinary act of humility. Not everyone accepted responsibility. Some defended the trials until the end of their lives. Others blamed Satan rather than the courts. The debate continues even today. Historians still disagree about what truly caused the Salem witch trials. Some point to religious extremism. Others emphasize political instability, frontier warfare, family rivalries, economic tension, or mass psychogenic illness. A few researchers suggested that ergot fungus growing on rye may have caused hallucinations, though many historians reject this explanation because it cannot account for the social and legal dimensions of the crisis. Perhaps there was never a single cause. Perhaps Salem was the result of fear, stress, belief, and human weakness colliding at exactly the wrong moment. One mystery remains especially fascinating. What became of Abigail Williams? As one of the most influential accusers, she played a central role in the trials. Yet after 1692, she almost disappeared from history. No reliable records reveal where she went. No one knows how she spent the rest of her life. History simply falls silent. In 1711, the Massachusetts government officially reversed many of the convictions and awarded financial compensation to the victims' families. It was an important acknowledgement, but it could never undo the damage. The innocent were gone forever. Today, Salem is visited by millions of people each year. Many come expecting stories of ghosts and witches. Instead, they discover something far more powerful. The real story of Salem is not about magic. It is about fear. It is about how ordinary people, convinced they were doing the right thing, allowed panic to replace evidence and suspicion to replace justice. The Salem witch trials changed American legal history forever. They became a lasting reminder that courts must rely on evidence rather than rumor, that justice requires fairness, and that fear can never be allowed to determine guilt. More than 3 centuries later, Salem still speaks to us, not because witches existed, but because innocent people suffered when truth was abandoned. Its greatest lesson is timeless: when fear becomes stronger than reason, when accusations matter more than facts, when people stop questioning what they are told, even the most ordinary community can commit extraordinary injustice. That is why the Salem witch trials remain one of history's most powerful warnings. The greatest danger was never witchcraft. It was the human capacity to believe fear without demanding proof. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more cinematic journeys through history. Sources and historical references are available in the description below. Now, here's a question for you. If you had lived in Salem in 1692, would you have had the courage to question the accusations, or would fear have convinced you they were real? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, remember, history is not only about the past, it is a guide for the future. And sometimes, the darkest chapters of history teach the brightest lessons.